Welcome back everyone, Knoxguy here with another Destiny video, and today I'm going to be bringing you King's Fall the raid. Now this is part 5 of a multi-part series of a general walkthrough of how to clear through the raid. This part is going to show you how to clear through Golgoroth. Now to begin, I would suggest equipping a high-powered sniper, and I would also suggest that if you have any warlocks, I would suggest you having them equip Stormcaller subclass, just because that's going to be good for crowd control, and the sniper is going to be good as far as doing damage towards Golgoroth. It was about the only way at our light levels we were able to clear through him before he enraged. Now to begin this, you're going to shoot this orb in the center of the room. After you damage it, it's going to hit the floor and it's going to cause Golgoroth to come out of the floor. You don't want to do any damage to Golgoroth yet, just because it begins his first damage cycle. You only have so many damage cycles before he enrages, and you want to make sure that you're ready and you have a game plan before you begin damaging him. Now what we're doing here is we're actually waiting for all of the thralls or alkalites and thralls coming in, because these thralls and alkalites become a problem, but if you take them out at the beginning, they don't respawn until the next damage cycle begins, and it just allows you to keep your attention set more on Golgoroth. Now whenever you're doing damage to Golgoroth, he'll actually spawn in cursed thralls down on the floor. He's trying to keep you away from these damage pools that give you buffs. And you just kind of have to do a little bit of crowd control. It's kind of general common sense to either shoot him or have someone designated towards that, but you'll have to worry about that. Now these orbs on the ceiling, these are the orbs that create the pools that give you a buff, a damage buff towards shooting him. Whenever you break it, it'll put the pool on the floor, and it's only going to be there for a duration of time, but it gives you that damage buff known as the Pool of Reclaimed Light. When that is active, you're allowed to do a lot of additional damage towards Golgoroth, basically in any position on him, but his main crit spot is going to be the opening on his chest. You only see this opening on his chest whenever he's in gaze, which basically means that a guardian has to shoot him in the opening on the back of his neck, which he is engaged right now, and he'll open up in his chest and it'll allow you to be able to shoot inside. Right now what we're doing is we're stepping in this pool to get the damage buff, and we're actually shooting in the opening. Now the reason why Golgoroth isn't doing any damage to us is because there's a person that's doing a position called gaze holding, and we have 2 people set towards this, and what they're going to do is they're going to shoot him in the opening of his back, and they're going to basically get a timer on their screen, and I think it's 20 seconds, but that timer is basically saying him that Golgoroth has your undivided attention for 20 full seconds. Now, the only way to change his orientation is by shooting him in the back of the neck again to pull his gaze. Now, the gaze is on a chain effect, and what I mean by chain effect is by if you were to let his gaze timer run out without somebody getting it again, he will actually end that first damage cycle, and then that means you're one closer towards him enraging. So with the 2 people that are set towards gaze holding, the first person that pulls his gaze needs to say, hey, I'm at 5 seconds on my timer. The other person's going to shoot the opening on his neck, and then they're going to run over towards the cliff. They're basically going to run over on the cliff and stand behind where you guys are standing on the floor, basically so he's oriented towards you guys where their opening is. He only looks towards the direction of the person that he has his gaze on. If you're on gaze holder, there's a few things you'll need to worry about. You need to worry about basically any AoEs that may or may not have been killed in the beginning. You also need to worry about these Axion bolts he's shooting out of his chest. They come in groups of 3. They will poison you if they hit you, and they will also do a considerable amount of damage, but you can shoot them out of the sky. You don't have to worry about him shooting his laser beam out of his eye whenever he's in gaze. He will only shoot the Axion bolts, so just be sure that you make sure you line them up. You can stand in any orientation that you need to, as long as you're standing behind the group that's on the floor, but trying to make it to where the orbs line up in a row so you can do a lot of damage and take them all out at one shot, basically. Now what we've done is we've actually completed the first damage cycle. Now there's more AoE spawning into the room. We're going to clear these real quick before we begin, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the damage crew. Now we did have kind of a plan going on. It ended up falling apart right towards the end. You'll see here in a few how that ended up falling apart, but What we basically did is our original plan was we were going to go in a rotation as far as shooting the orbs off the ceiling. You only get 6 orbs to drop on the ground, and whenever you basically whenever you shoot that orb, you kind of want everybody in that same pool, because he's only going to be able to be oriented in one way, and that opening's not very easy to hit. So unless he's facing directly towards you, you have to step a few steps on the side to look towards him if he's not directly facing you. Now, for the damage crew, here's a few things and tips and tricks that you'll need to worry about. Whenever you're the damage crew, you need to have one person basically doing call outs for the orbs. And what I mean is that whenever your pool is about to run out, or if it does run out, that person needs to call out which orb he wants to shoot next. We did have a pattern. We basically started at the front right, facing the door that you come in. The front right, we went down the right side, we came to the back left and came up the left side, and having that kind of basically gave everybody the idea where the next pull would be if we didn't call it out. But we did have someone calling it out, because it gets hairy in the end and you're not going to be able to follow that sequence down to a T. Now, that one person that's doing callouts for the damage crew, what he's going to be doing is he's going to be saying, I'm shooting the next orb, and whenever that orb hits the ground, he's going to say pull down. What that means to the people that have that are holding his gaze, that means that they're going to look either on the ground to find that next pull, and whenever they pull his gaze, they're going to run and stand behind that next pull to make sure that you guys have the correct orientation to shoot him. If you are calling out as far as pull down, you can call out the location of the orb if you all understand where this location is. The only three people that really need to be talking are the two gaze holders calling out their timers, and the one damage controller that basically is calling out when the pull is down and where the location is if he chooses to do so. Most of the time you can usually let the person up on top look, because if the locations are different for each person, that may not work out and they may run to the wrong location anyways. Now, I've left this unedited because I wanted to let you all see. It didn't take us more than about 10 minutes to clear through this section. But right here, whenever you get him under half health, there is no critical objective, but he does begin to spawn in Taken, and the Taken seem to spawn in a much higher rate. It gets a little bit crazy down at the bottom because the Curse Thrall weren't a big deal. They weren't fast and they weren't coming in large amounts of numbers, but the Taken do, and it becomes an issue, and we end up having to just end up shooting the orbs on the ceiling and putting them all on the ground, and we would have to basically hope that the gaze holders saw it. Now right here is a light totem pole, and basically what this is a death counter. Whenever you have a death, basically the first light's going to light up for you, and there's 6 symbols on that pole. Whenever the 6th symbol lights up, that means that he's going to enrage and it's going to blind you to the point where you can't see, and you'll get killed by the AoEs. Now, he does have an enrage timer, which as long as you're doing enough damage within each cycle, you won't really get to, but for the sake of things, you do want to always pretend that he will enrage soon, which that kind of just gives you the motivation to do a lot more damage right then, just to make sure you can get him closer. Because if he does say he's beginning to enrage, that means you're on the very last cycle that you'll be able to do damage towards him, and in some cases you may not even get to complete that cycle before he does enrage. Now, as you can tell right here, we have been using a lot of our snipers to do the majority of the damage. Most of the shots do between 50 to 80,000 per hit. Whenever you're using your super, if you have a point contact super instead of a splash damage super, that allows you to do a lot more damage towards him. And if you can see right there, we did lose his gaze, or the end of the cycle just happened. I can't remember. At this point, it was so hairy, we didn't know what was going on. But whenever the cycle ends, you can tell he basically just goes for the next closest thing, and it was my friend Peanut Butter sitting on the ground. Now, if you're a hunter and you do have issues of people dying right towards the end, I would suggest putting on those vanish grenades. It helps you basically get to the person and get his revive without Golgoroth getting his attention set towards you. Right here, his enrage timer says that he's basically near enrage, and this means that we're on our very last cycle, that we're going to be able to do damage towards him. If we don't kill him within this last cycle, he will enrage, we'll get blinded, and then we'll end up dying. It's hard for me to explain every single thing that you need to know about this part, because our strategy, we thought we had pretty dead set, but it just, at the end, it got so hairy, the only thing you could do was jump around and pray to God that the bubbles were being taken down and you were standing in those pools. And then whenever someone called out, "I'm standing in this pool," and you tell them the location, you just hope that the gaze holder is standing over it. See, as you can tell, a majority of the time right towards the end, our pools that we were taking down were not oriented towards where the gaze holder was. Right here, he does enrage. We didn't get enough damage to him soon enough, but you'll see right here at the end, we got pretty lucky as far as killing him. Right there, we killed Golgoroth right before the blindness took over our entire screens. Like I said, there's not many things you can do as far as having a set strategy. It might just get hairy at the end for everyone and you'll just have to work with it. But like I said, improvise and make sure that you do have a beginning strategy so you at least know everybody's position, and make sure you have high damage snipers, because like I said, if we didn't have all snipers, we wouldn't have cleared through Golgoroth.